Hello and welcome back to last week's news today. This is my ongoing segment where I try to catch stories that you might have missed the week before so you can stay as informed as possible. I've got a couple different things involving the international community, some polls, and also the moon. So let's get into it. The first story I want to talk to you about is a poll released by AP News and the NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. So this poll, according to the headline from the article, found that young adults are less likely to be interested in politics. The title of this article is "Young Adults Are Less Likely to Follow Politics or Say Voting is Important." Now, I think for a lot of people, voting, interest in civic events is often marketed as a form of patriotism, as a form of civic engagement, and is I felt like in a lot of public high schools, at least, pushed as sort of your responsibility as a citizen, or in some schools, a global citizen. So it's interesting that younger Americans, this would be, Gen Z and below, are actually saying, we don't care. We don't care about this at all. As you can see on this chart, the percent of adults who say following issues are extremely important or very important tend to be older. It tends to be U.S. adults ages 60 and older that say, you must pay attention to the economy. You can see it's 90%. Healthcare, they have it just below 90%. Taxes, I would say 85%. Government spendings, just over 80%, and so on and so forth. In contrast, this would, I would say, include late millennials. So U.S. adults 30 and under are just not engaged. There's not one percentage point here where they are more interested in a topic than their older counterparts. And what does that mean long term? So when it comes to the economy, it's something like 77%. Healthcare, 72% say it's extremely or very important to pay attention to them personally. Taxes at 66%, government spending 55%. The lowest is the situation in the Middle East at 38%. Kind of interesting because often we see that the most progressive protesters tend to be people on college campuses. Overall, actually, most of them don't care. I wonder if that means what that means for our political offices. So you'll hear a lot about the average age of Congress being old. And if we have young people are that like, I don't care about the issues, I don't care about voting, I would assume, and this is just my presumption, that they're also less likely to run for those offices. So you're probably more likely to see an aging body of elected officials than a wave of young people rising up to replace them, no matter how many, J.D. Vances and Max Frost the news media highlights. I think it's also interesting that this could be a symptom of basically doom and gloom culture. I mean, so many young people are apathetic. They feel like they'll never buy a house. They'll never be able to save enough to retire. They put off having children because of their fears. It might just be fatigue. They can't keep up with all of these issues, especially when they feel like they have no way to change them. Now, that's probably not true for everybody, but that could be the case. Or maybe it's overall political fatigue. People are just saying, I am tired of this. I want things outside. Are we going to see a renaissance in our conversation topics? Instead of it being about politics and making everyone at the dinner table fight, are people going to be saying, did you see this movie? I don't want to talk about politics. I want to talk about culture. I want to talk about art. Maybe having a younger class of people that aren't obsessed with politics is a good thing. According to AP News, only 2 in 10 adults under the age of 30 say they follow U.S. politics extremely or very closely, compared to about 1/3 of Americans overall. That's even higher among adults ages 60 and over. 45% of this group say they follow U.S. politics at least very closely. Disengagement is higher among teenagers, with an AP NORC poll from May finding 44% of teens ages 13 to 17 report following U.S. politics, quote, not very closely or not very closely at all. Meanwhile, about 2/3 of adults ages 30 say it's extremely or very important to vote, compared to almost 9 in 10 ages 45 and older who say it's at least very important to vote. Some of these habits could shift as people grow older. Young people traditionally are less likely to vote than older people, and voter participation tends to go up with age. It's possible that engagement with politics could follow a similar pattern. What do you guys think? Are we about to see a wave of people who aren't engaged in politics who want something else? Or does this even out as people get older? I've heard this reported about religion too, that people are not as engaged with their faith when they're young and they get more engaged as they're older. On the other hand, we're seeing reports that young people are running to traditional religions like Catholicism. Do you think that this trend is terminal, or do you think it's just a blip on the radar? I'd love to hear what you think. So the second story that you might have missed this week is that President Donald Trump was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize by Cambodia. This is not actually the first time he's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. The Daily Signal has some good reporting on this. They talk about Cambodia's message about Trump's influence on the Cambodia-Thailand border conflict and how he was integral in supporting a resolution. There's a quote here from Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chantol. He says, he, being Trump, should get the Nobel not only for his work in Cambodia, but also elsewhere. We acknowledge this great peace effort. According to the Daily Signal, the ceasefire agreement came soon after Trump warned Cambodia and Thailand last week that neither nation would reach a U.S. trade agreement if their border fighting did not stop. Now, what an interesting use of American economic influence. I know people will tell you that Donald Trump is the purveyor of conflict and that he's on the side of evil and destruction, but it really does seem like he wants to be a peace president, that his long-term goal for his legacy is to be someone who stopped conflict. He was asked this question about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. He has talked about this with Israel and the Hamas-Palestine conflict. You know, you can have your criticisms and complaints and question his loyalties on some of these issues. But it's fascinating to me that even in lesser known conflicts, he is saying, look, if you want to do business with the U.S., if you don't want to face economic fallout, then you need to get on board and stop fighting. Trump was previously nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and also by the Pakistani government for his role in their conflict and his efforts to end conflicts there. I think that this is not something you'll hear about that often because only, Obama can win the Nobel Peace Prize, according to a lot of mainstream outlets. But I'm curious to see if this will be a continued trend where about 8 months into the Trump administration, we've got 3 full years left to go, 3+ years left to go. How many conflicts can he resolve with this method of saying it's tariffs? It's either tariffs and conflicts or peace and no tariffs, and seeing how many countries get on board with that. What do you think? Let me know if you think this is an effective strategy. Do you expect it to be something he continues going forward? And finally, did you see these reports about a potential nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030? This is a report from BBC. It says NASA to put nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030. So I think this is kind of fascinating because of the ongoing debate over whether or not nuclear energy is something we can use going forward. I also think that it kind of reminds me of the race to the moon because it puts us in contention with Russia and China. So from the BBC, U.S. Space Agency NASA will fast-track a plan to build a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030, according to the U.S. media. It is part of U.S. ambitions to build a permanent base for humans to live on the lunar surface. According to Politico, the acting head of NASA referred to similar plans by China and Russia and said those two countries, quote, could potentially declare a keep-out zone on the moon. But questions remain about how realistic the goal and timeframe are, given the recent steep NASA budget cuts, and some scientists are concerned that the plans are driven by geopolitical goals. Now, I've always heard that people want to live on the moon. I remember specifically in 3rd grade being given like a little plastic dome and being told with a partner, create an ideal city for what life would be like on the moon. Of course, if you're going to live on the moon, I guess you need an energy source. I would have thought solar, but maybe we're going nuclear. It's interesting to me that this is something that's happening. Again, to talk about President Trump for a second, he was always someone who seemed interested in space. I mean, he put a lot of effort into Space Force during his first presidency. It's not surprising to me that under a Trump administration, the question of what do we do with the moon could come back up. I suspect that this will be something that environmentalists fight, but I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think that this is where we should put our nuclear reactor? This is from the BBC. In 2022, NASA issued a $5 million contract to companies to design a nuclear reactor. And in May of this year, China and Russia announced they plan to build an automated nuclear power station on the moon by 2035. Many scientists agree that it would be the best or perhaps only way to provide continuous power to the lunar surface One lunar day is the equivalent of 4 weeks on Earth, made up of 2 weeks of continual sunshine and 2 weeks of darkness. That makes relying on solar power very challenging. Do you guys expect this to be a goal, or do you think this is something we say to keep the geopolitical competitors at bay? I'm by no means a scientific expert, but it is definitely kind of a form of innovation. And I think so often, if you're not thinking about space, it's easy to sort of turn a blind eye to it. But by no means does that mean that anyone else is leaving that land up for grabs. And I guess that's the concern. Who is going to have the most influence on the moon? Is the moon the next great frontier? Let me know what you think. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts. And just a final segment. I saw this PSA on social media. I think it is important. I love Christmas. I know August seems early to be thinking about it, but if you are in the market to buy Christmas lights, I hope you take this into consideration.
We have the opportunity to make Christmas feel like the 90s again if we all collectively agree not to use these lights, especially on the outside of your house. Lights are ruining Christmas, and it's not making it feel like a nostalgic 90s Christmas. We need these warm colored Christmas lights. They are still out there. Driving through neighborhoods and looking through Christmas lights doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies anymore because these lights are the wrong color. If we keep buying them, the companies are going to keep making them because they think that we don't care, and it's probably easier and cheaper or whatever. But we do care, so we need to only buy these colored lights. Share this with anybody who puts up Christmas lights.
Okay, guys, that's it from me this week. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for keeping up with the series. I'm going to try and add another video into the rotation here in between these videos, but it's been nice to get this up and running. Please let me know what you think of any of these, or if there's a story you think I missed that you'd like me to read about and maybe talk about in the future. Thanks so much for the support. If you have been watching these videos and haven't, please subscribe. It makes a big difference for me, and it really helps my work. So thanks to all of you, and I'll see you later in the week.